Bendición. So this is going to be a long video, and yes, I'm going to be speaking quickly. I have the computer in front of me. It's a lot for me to get through. This video is in response to Thomas Byram 3954, who, in regards to a video where I say, do not receive an Orisha that you do not believe in, and do not receive an Orisha that you do not receive an Orisha from any individual, santero or babalao, that you do not believe in. And this is the comment that he gave back. How can someone claim to have more authority and knowledge than their godparent? Like if my godparent said I needed to receive Ayao, the sister of Oya, and I say I don't think it's legit based on things I've read online, isn't that a bit weird? Not everything is written down for public consumption, even today. Why would I trust the internet over my godparent? What authority does one have, especially a non-initiated person, to question this when it comes to an elder? You say be, quote, well-informed, but you were talking about being informed outside of your own lineage. And I put, this whole personal thoughts now. This whole in my lineage and in my house we do things this way is a whole nother topic, because most people in the U.S. are Pimienta lineage anyway, and Pimienta has about one root, and most people are Efuche, Millonarios lineage, and many are Coral. But people act like there's 50 lineages to justify why things are done incorrectly in their house, which is a completely different topic. Most houses in the U.S. come from Pimienta and the San Jose 80. That's a whole different topic, but I just want to throw that out there. How are these recourses superior to the oral knowledge of an initiated elder? Continuing on, he goes, for example, what if I believe in Chango but not Obatala because in Nigeria, Obamoro and Ayaguna are not considered the same Orisha? Should I not receive Obatala? We learn about Orisha and how to work with them after we've received them. Claiming more knowledge than our godparent about an Orisha we haven't received yet seems very odd to me. I think perhaps you are still talking about lack of faith in the elder, and maybe the whole message should be don't be involved with elders who you trust less than the internet. The first point I want to make is saying what a wonderful, wonderful point that you made, as I know that you surely are not the only person to be thinking this as a result of watching my video. I also want to say that I am not here to dictate to anyone or dictate definitively which Orishas are legitimate and which are completely made up. I'm not here to do that. All of the Orisha that I'm going to mention right now are all Orisha that can indeed be received, and it just boils down to whether you believe in them or not. Okay, so I'm not the leading authority saying, El Conquistador saying that this is real or this is not. I'm going to speak from personal experience as well, but you can receive everything that I'm going to be saying. Okay, so let's see. So for some reason or another, there is a contention about the following Orisha, and this is only a fraction of what actually exists. So I'm going to go down the list. He happened to mention Ayao, but I'm going to go down a list of some Orisha that there's some contention, some more than others. Okay, so let's say, so the first one, the Olokun of Ifa, which is possibly created by Tata Gaitan. The Olokun of Ocha, which Babalaos argue is actually a path of Yamaya by the name of Aganaeri. The Odua of Ifa, which is considered to be an Ifa exclusive Orisha, yet Odua was originally an Ocha exclusive Orisha, which was consecrated by Montserrate González Chango Batero herself in Matanzas, and then her daughter, Fermina Gomez, carried on the mantle. However, there were indeed others whom we can name that spread the cult of Odua, namely Juana Obatala Talabi, with the assistance of Teresita Ariosa and Niochun, two female santeras, birthed Odua for one Babalao named Secundina Cruzet Osalogbeyo, who then modified the consecration of Odua after the fact in order to be an Orisha of Ifa, birthed four other Babalaos. Today, some Babalaos argue that Odua/Odudua is an Ifa exclusive Orisha and that there's no need for any Ocha rites to be performed, namely the point where Santero is needed to cast the shells, the Dilogun, of Odua to speak through a female Obatala. Some Babalaos exclude this and claim that Odua is an Ifa only Orisha, yet the first Odua birth for a Babalao was birthed by 2 women. The next one, inversely, the Osun of Ocha is an Ifa exclusive Orisha and we know that this is indeed the case since the beginning. And in some cases, one only received Osun when it came up in a reading or an Ita of that person to receive Osun from a Babalao, namely within the Odu for Irosun. But the Carga within that Osun that we see today did not exist until around the 1940s, and it wasn't widespread until the 1960s. Osun is seen as the cane of Orumila, while Santeros argue that Osun is the cane of Obatala. But truly, only Babalaos had in the past the Ashe and the Licencia, and arguably today are the only ones that have the Ashe and the Licencia to give Osun, as it was always their position to do so. Another one, Ayao, the popular sister of Oya, and the Orisha in which you keep a bowl with a bunch of glasses around the sopera. This is an Orisha that was known exclusively in the Campo town of Jovellanos in a specific cabildo, but the Ayao in that cabildo never gave birth and was not given out to anyone. So Ayao surely exists. It exists, and it has existed in the past, but it was never given birth. And the keepers of Ayao within that cabildo confirmed that this Ayao never gave birth. So the question is, where did all of these other Ayao that are around today get birth from? It seems that no one can trace Ayao back to the root of who and where. And this is the issue. If we cannot trace an Orisha back to a verifiable root / place / person of origin, then the legitimacy of said Orisha is at best questionable and at worst completely fabricated. Let's see, Ode, an Orisha that Babalaos argue is an Ifa exclusive Orisha. Santeros argue against and say it's in the family of Ochosi, so they can give it. Arguably, either way, some say that Ode is not a separate nor an essential Orisha to have, as he's simply a path or an offshoot avatar of Ochosi himself. So if you have Ochosi, the fundamentado of Ochosi, then there's no need for this offshoot Ochosi that you already have. Let's see, Olokun to the head directly, contention against that we know of. The only person who may have had Olokun to the head direct in all of Cuba, Lukumi, in all of Cuban Lukumi is Nya Inez Yenyet Olokun, and even so, she may have been a child of Yemaya, not Olokun. Yemaya Olokun was, Yenyet Olokun was the comadre of Mamon Serrate, and has a lineage of Olokun her own that does stem from this woman, Yenyet Olokun. A woman of whom we have little to no evidence of her existence, has never been documented or photographed. Regardless, we know that not even she, nor Mamon Serrate, nor Fermina Gomez, Ochabi, made Olokun to anyone's head direct. And in all the years of Ocha, no one has ever had Olokun direct, and instead was made through Yemaya. Until at some point, someone said that they had the secrets to do Olokun direct, that coincidentally an initiation that had never been performed direct in the past 100+ years, since 1864 with the first, Josefa Herrera Echubi in 1864, and the first recorded initiation in Cuba, that's the first. Suddenly a modern Santero knows and shared the secret to perform this directly. We know that in Oyotunji, Olokun is done directly, but they deal with a lot of Nigerian stuff. So unless you get done in Nigeria, Nigerian style, Isheshelagba style, there is no having Olokun direct. Keep in mind that I come from a house where Olokun is done direct. The Oriate does Olokun direct. So just keep in mind, I'm not here to dictate what's right or what's wrong or who's legitimate, who's not legitimate. I'm going off right now, okay? Other Orishas that have contention with the existence. Osia, the daughter of Obanani and Inle. Tobia, Tobia, the brother of Inle. Ochumare, of Cuban origin, the only legitimate. It said that the only, if someone says that they have Ochumare Cuban style or Cuban, I have Ochumare. Well, the only legitimate Ochumare is of Brazilian roots. And as a fundamento, similarly to Ayao, the Orisha we know exists. Ochumare, the crown of Yemaya and the rainbow, yada, yada, yada. but no actual fundamento, Cuban rooted Lukumi fundamento exists for Ochumare. But now suddenly it exists. But we know now that Ochumare has Brazilian roots as far as the fundamento to consecrate Ochumare was not Cuban. He existed in pataquis and stories and whatnot, but an actual consecrated Ochumare, we got to go to Brazil or get, that brought back. By now it's probably brought back, and now we have it. Continuing on, Oti, the child of Yemayano Gun, Olobamo Boshun, or Obamoloshun, the little sister of Obanochun. Another Orisha. Ori, the Ori that is given by Cuban Ifa or Cuban Ocha. Both are seen or can be seen as questionable, as Ori is a fundamento that did not exist at, or at least was never consecrated for anyone else outside of a few people that never birthed it for others. Basically, it was like someone's grandma who birthed it for them and consecrated it for them, but that person kept it and never consecrated it for anyone else. There is evidence cited by Hilario Ba, Willie Ramos, that a major root of Ori that in the USA stems from a Puerto Rican by the name of Jose Luis Duque and Oni Chango, who invented the Cuban Ori that we see today with the stone, a little wooden head, and with sometimes there's a carga with the head, and some others don't have it. There are various modifications. I have personally seen this Ori. My Ibeyi of Ocha has received Ori through Ifa, and it has a little stone and it has a little wooden head. But Willie argues that Ori did not survive in Cuba, or at least was not widespread, similarly to Ayao, and that the only legitimate Ori lineages are from Nigeria and Brazil, where the cult and secrets of the consecration of Ori did indeed survive and have verifiable historical lineages, as opposed to the Cuban one, which seemingly popped out of nowhere, or conveniently it said that some guy came over, someone that no one can ever name, brought it over from Brazil, brought it over from Nigeria. Yeah, it doesn't resemble anything that is actually given in Brazil or anything that's given in Nigeria. And ironically enough, we'll still have the same implements created by the Affirmation Puerto Rican Santero nearly 40 years ago. The last one I'm going to end on is a personal one, is Egun. I'm just giving mad examples, and then I'm going to get to my point, because this person mentioned Ayao. So these are other questionable practices and whatnot. Okay, so Egun, this is the one that I personally dealt with. Mine, I went through a ceremony. I went to a santero that I had a black rock, a teja de Egun, with Ifa Odu on it. Had a full ceremony, a 9-day ceremony with pig heads and 9 drinks and nine everything, 9 liquors, and at the, let me see, and there, yeah, everything for Egun. The stick had to remain in his house, getting the sombra of his stick, of his palo muerto, of his Egun, or paiku, as many call it. The stick had to be my height, had to be wrapped in 9 colors. It had to stay at his house for 9 days. The pig's head was taken to a cemetery after 9 days. I had to drive from Jersey all the way to New York. And the pig's head was taken to the ceremony, left on top of some random person's grave. Coconut was casted, obi was thrown, and all this was done by a santero, not a babalao. I mentioned that specifically because I received a teja de Egun with Ifa Odu on it, and this was all done by a non-babalao. I thought it was weird then, but I didn't question it, okay? Because like you say, my man, you say, oh, how am I supposed to, I don't, have more authority or know more than your elder. Well, I trusted this person. This person was my elder, and okay, so I guess as a non-initiated of Ifa, you can just write Odu of Ifa and not be a babalao. I've also heard of other people like my bay, like India, who I got crowned with, having to go to the forest, and this is from a different person, and find a stick that's the same height as you. You go to the forest, and then coconut is thrown at the forest, and boom, that's your stick for Egu. Now we're going to decorate it. Let's see. Only to find out, after all this, 5 years later, that, oh yeah, and I've had another stick that was made, and I had to be as tall as me, and it had the jingle bells on it. So I had 2 sticks in my life, and let's see. Only to find out 5 years later that when I called some Santero friends in Florida. I spoke to 3 Oriateses that I know, and I learned years later that none of this, what I went through with my Egun stuff, exists. And that even the poor people in Cuba will simply grab a broomstick handle, hit it on the floor, sing aumba, waori, all that jazz, and put it back after the end of the ceremony. I asked an oriate from New York City to confirm this, and everything that was described to me by the other people, he verified as well, and he said the same thing, but he said, I quote, the ota for Egun is garbage. And that the black rock is the black rock of Egun is sancocho mixed from palo mayombe, and the little jingle bells with the 9 color ribbons on the stick is sancocho from epiritimo cruzado. And the only legitimate ceremonies for Egun, any physical items that we receive in Egun, is that they have the Egun, which is consecrated by full babalao, and the bundle of sticks is only received after an honra ceremony for one's elders. So most santeros don't even have that. That was another thing I received. I received a bundle of the bundle of sticks. There's like a specific kind of stick it has to be, and it's wrapped in red. I had that as well for the 9 days. So, and even India, she had a bunch of these palo muertos, of these opai, these things for Egun, these sticks, in the corner of her house. And she paid 121 a pop because every santero in New York City that she went to would tell her, oh no, the last one was not prepared correctly. So she didn't know which one she used. And she tells me at some point she had almost 10 just sitting in a corner. She didn't know which one to use. All that did was drain her money and her time. So one day, after however many years, she got up and she said, I'm throwing all this shit out. And that's a quote from her. And she did that. She did just that. Let me just find myself. I know I'm speaking fast. She did blah, 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 blah. So she threw everything out after verifying with multiple reputable sources. So now new thought. So she threw away all of her stuff. Her Egun sticks. She still has her teja de Egun, and she still, ironically enough, she has a rock. And this was from a babalao. We went to the same babalao. So she got up one day, said, I'm throwing all this stuff out. She did just that. She got rid of her stick. So now, new thought. After verifying with multiple reputable sources, educating myself on what true Orthodox ocha is, and coming to the conclusion that what I had received is not Orthodox ocha, and not legitimate, and not valid, I personally, everything that I described, all the Egun stuff that I received, I've thrown it away since. I've thrown everything away. I ripped off the 9 bells. I ripped off the 9 bells that were hanging off the top of the Egun. It like came halfway down. I took off those bells because I got them online, and they were like good quality Indian bells. I used one for Ochun, and I used one for the Bovada, and I put one around the cat's neck so I can hear him when he's outside. Good quality bells. I still have the rest in case I ever need some damn bells. I'm not throwing those out. I threw the actual stick in the garbage in the big pail outside because it had staples in it to hold the fabric and ribbons on it. So I threw that outside. I was going to just take it out to the forest, but it had like staples, and I don't want to put metal and things that are man-made into the forest. I put the teja de Egun, I put that in a river because the shit cost me like 25 bucks. So one day, when I receive Orisha Oko, one day, someday, I won't have to pay for a new teja de Egun. If the river doesn't wash it away. I wasn't thinking. I was just trying to get rid of it and hide it. I didn't want it laying around the house. I threw the rock, the black rock that I got, I threw it into the forest from my deck at the last place I was living. And he was like, oh yeah, so what are you going to do with that? I looked at it and said, man, I've been holding this thing around the damn house trying to think when I'm going to take the time out to go to the forest. I took it and I threw it. And I threw it by the forest, by the river. I don't know where it is. And I untied the bundle of sticks that I got, and I tossed that into the forest as well. And now all I have is a. Actually, I'll show you guys. Okay, so now this is what I had. I had a bunch more stuff. Everything that I told you that I received. Now this is it. This is it. It's got some broken pottery, apadi, and a little water, and it's dirty because this is the outdoors. But this is it. This is what I own. Okay. Okay, so now I'm back in the house. So as you can see, nothing fancy and no fancy ceremonies were done, and I didn't undergo no ceremonies. Okay, super duper simple, and that's the way I like it, and that's what I learned is legitimate. Let's see. Okay. So the next point I want to make is notice that for everything that I did, most of these orishas that I named, I know some of them I did not, but for a decent amount, Ori, the Egun stuff, Odua, Ayao, notice that at least some degree, some more than others, I was able to flesh out the details, names, time frames, the roots, and the evidence as to why the existence of certain orisha are at least questionable and at the most completely fabricated. In the case of Egun that I just showed you, I verified with multiple sources, 4 to be exact, 3 Oriates and 1 Santero friend that I highly respect. And along with, admittedly, with Reddit posts with Oriates that are in the comments, like Caracol and other websites, and I asked the questions, and I sought book sources from credible Oriate sources. And so the stone that they had Ifa made by Nambabalao, the fancy stick ceremony I learned all that was invalid invento. So, but I want to say, just because something comes from a source that is not your own elder does not make it legitimate. I totally understand that. But these resources exist for a reason. And to some degree, you have to give credence to these people and the resources that they present, because they come from credible resources. If 5 out of 5 credible resources, respectable resources, like Obaoriates, like Babalaos, these people, some people that have been made 50 plus years of Ocha, have written books, are doctors, anthropologists, have taught courses, have traveled throughout Cuba, Brazil, Nigeria, collecting data, collecting secrets, and have worked with other Oriates since the 80s that they knew personally in the 80s. And these Oriates in the 80s knew the people from the 40s. And these same Oriates today, they tell you that a particular orisha or particular ceremony is not valid. 5 out of 5 out of these people say this. But your one godparent insists that you need to receive XYZ. Then logically, would you not second guess this godparent? And I don't think, aside from trust, I stress the word logically, because I get where you're coming from. How am I not going to trust my godparent? I trusted the person that gave me that Egun stuff. India trusted the person that gave her this Ori stuff from the Babalao. And maybe your godparent does have the best intentions, but we all know that age does not mean knowledge, and many santeros have been taught incorrectly. For example, I 100% trusted the one that gave me the Egun stuff. I already said that. And India, she trusted the person that gave her Ori, and we believed that it was legitimate. And we trusted all these santeros who kept charging 121 for a new Egun stick, but years later, we know better, and we recognize the amounts of invalid ceremonies and corner cutting that was done. And if I knew what I knew now, I would have told India, don't receive Ori from a Cuban Mabalao. It's not legitimate. I would have passed on the idea of receiving anything Egun related, because it was all invento. And this was all because I took the time to learn from reputable sources. And I remember being told by my godparents at the time to stop researching and reading, because it will confuse me and stop me from learning how they did things in their house. I know where you're coming from, my dude. And I get where your godparent comes from, or where you're thinking, and where my godparents were coming from at the time. And looking back now, I see that some things were, even in their house, was not done orthodox either. Indeed, it is a catch-22, because you're trying to tell your elder that you know better. I know that comes off as wrong, but hindsight is 20/20. Get this. Another point I want to make is that you ask, what authority do you have as a godchild? The authority that you have is that you are a grown adult, and this is your life. And if you don't wish to receive an orisha that you deem invalid, or at least questionable, then it is your right to not receive that. And no one should force you to receive that which you don't want to receive. Instead, your godparents should sit down with you, and maybe with other elders, explain to you these resources, and answer any questions that you have. If your elder says you need to receive ayao, yet cannot explain calmly any of the details as to its origin, its lineage, or the role that orisha has played in their own life, then you should be questioning things. You should be able to have civil talks with your elder. Your elder should be humble enough to talk with you, as opposed to saying, well, in my house we do things this way, and you better do as I say, or else I'm kicking you out. I say this. In addition, I want to say now, I say all this, but yes, in the old days, there was no questioning your elder. But unfortunately, today we live in an age where there is simply too many people with 10 plus years of ocha who do not know better, who are ignorant, who take shortcuts, and regardless of best intentions, are perpetuating incorrect ocha. The one that I got my Egun staff from and all that Egun stuff had 20 plus years of ocha made. I was in an ile where the guy had 20 plus years of ocha made, but I witnessed this for myself. Another personal story. This guy marked a man to feed Yamaya and to feed a ram to Yamaya and give 4 legs. So this man flew from California, and the goats and the animals were all prepared for the person. All the birds were used to clean the man, sarayaye, and all of them were sacrificed and thrown into a big trash bag. All the animals were thrown into a big old trash bags. El iguaz, 4-legged, and the birds, Yamaya's 4-legged, and the birds, all of it thrown into a trash bag and thrown out. The head wasn't danced. The asheses were never presented. There was no butchering that went on. And after all the cleaning up, we proceeded, because I was there, proceeded to give the man the reading with Yamaya shells, like an after feeding his own Yamaya 4 legs. And everything was just thrown out. Keep in mind that this man was an aleo that literally could have had anything else and should have had anything else prescribed to this aleo from California, but he apparently asked to give Yamaya 4 legs. This is what he prescribed. And in the reading, he told the man that Yamaya says for him to leave his job. Now, I don't say this to bash anyone. I say this because I'm speaking on personal experience. And now, knowing what I know today, after taking my 2-year courses with two notable oriates, after reading from reputable sources, and I learned that unless you clean the person, which is very, very rare when when giving a 4-legged animal, you always have to present the acheses and eat the meat of all the animals that were sacrificed. But instead, what most people do is clean the people with all the animals, even if the Orisha said and never asked for sarayege, never asked for the person to be cleaned, as a way of having an excuse to not pluck the feathers and butcher and take out the acheses and cook the meat and eat it. It is a lot of work. It is a pain in the ass. I say all this because these are 2 santeros with 20 plus years in Santo. And the amount of invalid practices that I witnessed, and I have personally, the Egun stuff I paid for, and I went back and forth from Jersey to New York for illegitimate things. I say this, blah, 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 blah. So these are people that I respected. And it's only because I educated myself and I see the patterns. I saw the patterns of what reputable sources taught and what my supposed reputable elders actually did in front of me. And I saw the discrepancies. So now if I have an elder tell me I have to receive ori from them, I will sit down with the person and ask, I have read and heard from XYZ source that this Orisha is not legitimate. Can you please explain to me why it is? Explain to me where the lineage come from. Explain to me the names of the roots of this Orisha. Can you sit down? Can you cite other notable santeros that have the Orisha? Can you share your personal experiences with their Orisha? Can you share the Odu in which this Orisha is born? Sorry, I still have my doubts. Are there any oriates or reputable sources that you can get on the phone so we can talk on speaker to quell my doubts? If you have a humble and calm elder, I believe you should be able to ask these kinds of questions without them getting flustered, or can, quote, you, the elder, not answer the questions about the roots of this Orisha. In which case, why should I receive an Orisha that you yourself do not know the roots of? Or why are you asking me all these questions and they're getting flustered? Do you not know the answers? Do you not know the roots of Ori? Do you not know the roots of Ayao? Do you not know the roots of Odua, yada, yada, yada? Why am I going to receive something you can't answer these basic questions about the roots and lineages? Are you not my elder? Or if you don't know the answer, there's nothing wrong. I don't know the answer. Ahijada. I'm going to go get the answers and come back to me. I'm going to end it with this because this is already 30 minutes long. In the end, it is your life and it's your money on the line. Don't receive anything that you have any doubts in, because you will always second guess what you have, and that doesn't serve you in any way, shape, or form. So I gave you loads of examples of Orisha that may or may not be questionable. This is up for you to decide in your experiences and the elders that you speak to. I'm just giving examples, real world examples. In the end, it's up for you to decide. Who are you to tell your elder, especially as someone who's not initiated? Well, you tell your elder, you know what? I saw this video on El Conquistador. Can we watch it together? He brings up some interesting points. Maybe they're not good. Maybe the elder's going to say, El Conquistador doesn't know what he's talking about. Well, then hit me up and I can give you the actual sources where I get this information. And I can be like, well, I cited here that this Oriate says this, and this Oriate says this, and this Oriate says this, and this book written by this Oriate says this, and this is why El Conquistador says that Ori is not legitimate, or that Ayao or anybody else with the Eglon stuff. Maybe your godfather gave you Eglon stuff with the rock, and present to him or her the sources that you have, and you explain, this is a very interesting video that I saw, and this is what El Conquistador says. Let's talk about it. And ask, is El Conquistador talking out of his ass, or does he raise interesting points, and he gives sources and names that should be pried into more, so we can come to a logical, discerned, filled conclusion. So this is the end of the video. I already see 31 minutes, 32 seconds. I got 31:47 left. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you actually made it this far, thank you so much. And God bless. Peace out.